Yeah, so I'm happy to have you here, and yeah, what I always do is like give you the opportunity to introduce yourself shortly, and then I have a few questions that I would like to ask you.
Okay, sure. My name is Kimate Richards. I've been in the realm of robotics for about 20 years, mechatronic engineer. Before that, I was a computer scientist kind of person, so I'm pretty old. I look young, but 50. And so I've done a lot of applications that involve people and systems and trying to humanize them. And so that's been the focus of my career for the last 30 years total, about 20 years in robotics. Yeah.
I mean, this is a very exciting time to be around, especially if you have been in the business for quite such a long time and seen both sides of it, right? Both sides of it.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the questions that I have was like generative AI, how to really make it useful. Because for us as a consumer, it is about the usefulness, right?
Yes, especially in the home right now, you see vacuums, robotic vacuums and lawnmowers and mops and those kinds of things, and they're one dimensional. They're going to do that one job, but at some point, humanoids will need to be multidimensional. They need to be able to handle multiple jobs at once, and the only way to do that is if we make them relatable. The other thing is we have to give them a sense of hierarchy that we have. So when you're cooking on the stove and the doorbell rings, you know to stop cooking and turn off the fire. And that's not something that is innately inherent with robotics. So with generative AI, we're capable of giving it more logic, more reasoning capability, and that's where I'm focused.
Interesting take, because when you normally focusing on these kind of things, you're focused on the task itself, not what is more important with other tasks, right?
Yes.
And really getting an idea of being useful. So I think it's interesting take, an interesting example that you have.
Yeah, because at some point, I want that Jetsons in the house moment where the robot's capable of doing many things, but it has to understand the sense of hierarchy, but between the tasks, not only the task, but who's asked the task. Like it needs to know what people it's dealing with. Are you an adult? Are you a child? Are you a user of the local system, or are you a person that maybe the robot's opening the door and getting the Amazon delivery? How do you speak to that person versus how do you speak to the person that's your primary users? Yeah. So there's a lot to bring together as far as logic. And one of the easiest ways to do that is with generative AI, to give it a system that it can relate to, which is a very human system. That's how we relate. Like if you're speaking to a family member, it's going to be different than if you're speaking to your doctor, right? Yep.
You already used that example, and this was what would go to my next question. The other guest that I had today earlier on, we were talking about logistics, we were talking about manufacturing, we were talking about pharmaceutical cases, but also agriculture, right? But you said something that is very important, and some AI and some humanoid companies are pushing this narrative, bringing robots into your home, right? So consumer-facing robotics.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest problem to solve. I think the CEO of 1X said something that I agree with, and that is the in the home is the most complex problem. I deal with robots in a factory space as well, and that's a closed, very static environment. They're usually in cages. If the robot and the humans are interacting, the robot slows way down or even stops. Like at Amazon, they just stop. And so the harder example is when you have a toddler running on the floor and a dog, and someone's yelling from upstairs and blah. This is a much more complex environment, and it's a multitask environment. So the level of understanding that a robot needs to have is much more. Like it needs to understand what's a safe thing to do, what's a more important task in a task ranking, what tasks need to be sequential. Because there are some things like if I'm cooking on the stove and I turn the fire on and I put the food in, I can't walk away for 40 minutes and do the laundry, right? Just because someone else has given me another task. It's things that we as humans do, but it's a learned behavior. Like toddlers to young adolescents don't know that behavior innately. We actually have to teach them that. So what we're trying to do with the robot is have it be useful on day one, and the way to do that is to give it a system, and that system is really, the best modality is a reasoning model. Yeah.
The adoption that we see at the moment in logistics or in manufacturing, as you said, have different complexity.
Yes.
But also safety concerns. You were talking about 1X and how what's their approach and where their first use cases like are
Yes.
versus some some other US companies that are looking primarily, for example, for manufacturing, right?
Yes.
So, what do you think? What is where are we standing with those two things?
I think standards are being developed now, but they're standards based on a little bit of the conjecture. We don't know exactly how this is all going to play out, but the immediate thing that needs to happen is we understand how to keep the robots safe and the people safe at the same time. And so we have to maybe even have a more stringent standard than we will later on. Today, if a robot comes near you, you basically shut the robot down and you slow it way down. In the future, that may not be the case. It may be that the robot understands trajectory and where you might be going, et cetera. And I think that's the future that we're going to probably all collide on, whether it's in the factory or it's in the home, where the robot is still operating, but it knows where it can be safest. And also they need to be built in a safe manner where they're not moving at speeds that are going to be dangerous, or even when problems happen, they need to figure out a way to shut down gracefully and not fall over. Or, for instance, there was a robot not too long ago that just swung its arms wildly. And the reason these things happen is we're so concerned with the robotic control problem that we're neglecting the fact that all these things need to come together at once, where safety, privacy, security, all the systems that go on a robot need to also happen with control at the same time. So it's a long way to answer that question, but the reality is I think people need to be thinking about safety while they're building the robot, while they're designing each articulation point. We need to be thinking about what happens if this thing fails.
Keeping in the back of the mind while doing this.
Yes, not in the back of the mind. While you're building, you should be thinking like, if this degree of freedom fails, if the leg fails, what's going to happen while I'm building? That way, I can build in maybe a backup braking mechanism or a spring that might keep the robot stable if the battery goes out. So there's a way to solve that, and that's in simulation. You bring every possible problem that could ever exist, and you even make up some problems using generative AI that the robot might face. And the reality is they may face those problems.
And without taking any sides, because you elaborated on both things at the moment, but where do you think we will see the first adoption? Mass adoption.
Mass adoption. I think hospitality and healthcare, you're going to start to see robots doing more things. As far as manufacturing, we're starting to see adoption now in places like the automotive manufacturing space. But if we're talking about more consumer or interaction with people, you're going to start to see that in hospitality, mainly hospitals, teaching institutions, first airports to do security, those kinds of things. And we're going to see them be still one-dimensional. The robot's going to pick up a thing from here and put it over there. Or it's going to, count whether you're wearing masks or open a door or that kind of thing. Super simple tasks, but we will start to bring in more capability as time goes on.
I had a conversation not too long ago about the hospitality use case.
Yes.
And here it seems like at the moment there is not only the privacy and safety concern, but it's really about the commercial aspect and the investment, because it seems like at the moment we still have the situation that there's a lot of people missing,
right.
Workforce missing,
yes,
but also the amount of money you need to spend on salary and these kind of things. So it seems like at the moment it's not justifying the investment at the moment.
Yeah, it's all a problem of scale, I think. The more robots that are out there, the more we'll have robots to do things. That's number one. Right now, the cost is very high for a robot. We need to bring that cost way down. A way to do that is open sourcing the build and design of some of these things. and as well some of the major manufacturers, maybe having them supply more products to people. That's one thing. And I think as far as the people issue goes, there are some jobs that I don't want a robot to do. And cleaning a hotel room is not one of those jobs. I think that's a job that's repeatable, and the robot can do that job quite well. I don't want them being my yoga instructor, my, these other. I think there's ways to employ people in other ways that are more valuable that I don't want a robot to do, and they're jobs that are dull, dangerous, dirty, that the robots can do. But we just have to get that cost down, and then for me personally, when I go see my doctor, I want personalized care. I want that doctor to be totally focused on me. If they have 500,000 patients, they're not focused on me. And so I think there are times in which we can even bring a robot into that space and say, okay, if all you need is a cast, let's let the robot set your leg and do the cast. But if you need, neurological care, let's maybe let the human do that. So I think we'll find a way to employ people in a very, very meaningful manner, and then still have the robots to do the things that I didn't quite answer your question. But the reality is, I think there's enough people, and there should be more robots.
I mean, there's a lot of things that comes with that.
Yes.
When we're talking about supply chain.
Yes.
To build this.
Yes.
But let's not dive too deep into this. What I'd like to ask a few questions,
Sure.
a few guests today already is, what you're looking forward to, because we have June approaching, so half of the year is almost over.
Yes.
So what are exciting things that you're looking forward to?
I think the most exciting thing for me is the fact that a lot of different companies are coming together and deciding to open source very important things. NVIDIA, they've basically made some of their robotic control generative models open to the public. Groot, if you've ever heard of that. I know you have, but and so that stuff to me is very important. Where Meta is open sourced a lot of their stuff. Apple as well. And so I think we're starting to see different major companies come together and realize that they can't do it on their own, and that we can all be better as a group. I think the fact that we're starting to see a lot of startups in robotics is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
We didn't even have this humanoid conference. This is the first year that we've had something like this. We've had robotic conferences, but we haven't had in multiple places around the world this kind of excitement around this space. So I think this year just is fascinating on its own. I'm looking forward to next year. I have my own startup, so I'm looking forward to that as well, getting that out there into the world. It's just a great time. Like, I don't know when have you seen this many robots walking around?
Casually.
Casually, yes. It's a great time to be alive. There's a guy I watch on YouTube, and he says, "What a time to be alive!" at the end of all of his presentations, and I think this is the best time to be alive in general. Yeah.
Especially as you said that you've been in the industry for over 20 years.
Yes.
And as someone working with robots,
Yes.
different kind of views, different kind of levels within
Yes.
different kind of companies.
Yeah.
So I think very valid to have you here and your opinion and take on things.
Absolutely, I enjoy it. Thanks for having me. 20 years ago, robots were about really control. They were just control systems. They were like PLCs. I'm going to go do one thing, one dimensional. And now we're starting to see, robots that can water the plants and then 2 seconds later solder with a soldering iron. Like I was amazed to see a Tesla robot look at another half-built robot and know what to go get next as a component to build that next one. To me, that's it's almost the stuff of movies.
Becoming reality now.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And looking forward to see what's next for you.
Yes. If you're done, the robot I brought with me is by Robotics. It's a robot head, and the system that I've built on it recognizes your face and your voice and the historical context of your conversation. So when you walk over and speak with it, it remembers what you talked about and just can lead straight into that conversation again, or change the subject matter. And the idea is that you will have one robot that's relating with many different people. Like I said, the person at the door, the child, et cetera, and it has to know what its interaction should be with those individuals, what it's done last, et cetera. Yeah.
I mean, memory is a big topic to be solved
It is.
still, right?
Me-
From the data scale, but also from the commute
Yes.
and how much it costs.
Yes. Memory hierarchy of workflow, which is a kind of technical term, but the reality is like, what should I do? What makes the most sense? That's something that we do innately, but for a robot, it's quite difficult. And even in the room next door, I had built a system where robot recognizes faces, but there were so many people, it was getting confused. Just like, do I look at this person? And this person's talking, and it just like went back and forth and just kind of, I guess, freaked out is a good term, because it was just like, this person's talking here, this person's talking here. Who should I listen to? That's a problem that that I actually look to solve very soon. Yeah.
I keep an eye, and,
Yes.
and looking forward to hearing more from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy this. So thanks. Are we all done?